This is so much better, I can see. I still haven't come up with an intro. But anyway, today we're going to talk about Premiere Pro tutorial. I know I was going to say Final Cut Pro next, but I actually had a request for Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm using my hands a lot. So Adobe Premiere Pro, we're just talking about the absolute basics just to get a video started. How to edit, how to crop motion, just to make your basic video. There's so much more that Adobe Premiere has to offer, but this is just going to be the absolute basics. Should probably start recording my screen. Okay, so we're going to go into Adobe Premiere Pro. In Adobe Premiere Pro, you have kind of the same setup as you saw in iMovie, but then kind of not. You have your timeline, so where your media goes. You have where your media is imported, so you can just drag and drop into your timeline. And then you have, this is a new one, we have an effects control panel. The effects control panel is one of the tabs of that panel. Basically, it's a second window to expand your workspace and look deeper into some clips. I'll show you that later. The window that says program, that's your playback window. That's what you see when you're editing. And then to the right here is just some of the effects and the coloring techniques you can use. We won't get into all of them. We'll get maybe into some color and the effects, but that's basically it. Okay, so what you want to do is that you want to go up. What you want to do is you want to go up to here to File, and then go to Import Media. And then it's going to bump you to your Finder. So Adobe, the nice thing about Adobe Premiere Pro is that it's Mac and Windows friendly. Obviously Mac can perform it better just because of the higher processor, but it works the same in Windows. So you grab your clips and then hit Import. Another thing you can do is that you can just open Finder, click it, and then drag it in. That's usually what I do. Okie dokie, so now you have imported your media. What you want to do is that you're going to grab your clip from your media box and then drag it onto your timeline, just like you would in iMovie, okay? And the same thing works as it did in iMovie as well. You can click on the video in your media box and hit I for in, and then you can drag it and then O for out. What this does is that you are narrowing down what you want to show in your video. What you're doing here is that you're narrowing down what you're clicking and dragging onto your timeline. So since I did like I for in and O for out, what this did was select, like, if my video is this long, it selected this. And if I go and click and drag it, it's just going to bring this on the timeline, if that makes sense. So what I did before is that I just clicked and dragged that whole video clip onto my timeline. That's something you can do if you want to save time. What you can do if you're like, oh, I really don't like the beginning, you can go over to the side panel right here and get the razor tool. And then what you're going to do is that you can move your playhead and to where you want. You're like, oh, I really like this spot, and then you just hit where you want to cut it, and then it'll cut it. The nice thing about the razor tool is that wherever you drag your playhead, that's this little blue thing right here, and then you cut it, it's going to cut exactly where that playhead is, which is super nice. So then all you can do is go hit your mouse again, click the clip that you want to delete, and just hit backspace, and that's it. Now really quick, this is something I use all the time. When you're going back and forth between your tools, to get back and forth between the razor tool and the selection tool, there are shortcuts on your keyboard you can do. So if I'm in the razor tool, I can hit V on my keyboard and it'll put me to my selection tool, which is super nice. If I want to go from my selection tool to my razor, I hit C. And it's just super quick instead of going here to your side panel. Okay, so we learned how to cut. Let's say I want to get rid of the beginning. So you click it, you highlight it, and then you just hit delete. Okay, and then the whole clip is gone. So now you're left with this clip. And again, it's super easy. Just to move around your clips, you can just click and drag it. That's what I just did right there. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Personally, when I'm like making a music video, I like to remove the sound. Another thing you can do is that when you are editing sound, over here the M button is a mute and you won't be able to hear the audio. And then vice versa, there's that eyeball. You hit the eyeball and you can't see that video clip in your playhead. So if there was a video clip under that, you'll be able to see that, and I'll show that in a little. And those are just the basics in that panel, and those are the only ones I will be reviewing. But again, it just matches up in that little column. So the eyeball here is going to match up with the media that's in that row, and same for the mute button. But let's say you're like, I don't want to mute it. I just want to get rid of it. Just completely wipe it out. Right click on the audio and go down to where it says unlink. What that does, it separates the video file from the audio file, so you can separately edit them. Because you know how you saw when you would click on one earlier, they're both highlighted, and when you move it, they both move. This way is that when they're unlinked, it's basically what it sounds like. They are no longer connected, so I can move the video over here and then I can move the audio over here. But in this case, we're just going to delete the audio. How about that? I don't want the audio. Just get it out of here. So now all I have is this short little clip. This is my brother, by the way. He's jumping off a little bridge. Okay, so you notice that when I highlight something, over here in my effect controls, there's all these fancy numbers and positions and scales and motions junk. At first when I opened this, when I started Premiere Pro, that freaked me out. There was just too many like numbers and stuff, but it's super easy. If you look over here, it's super self-explanatory. Position, the first numbers is going to be just moving your clip, your clip left to right in the view. And then the one next to it is going to be moving it up and down. Scale, exactly how it sounds. You increase it, it's going to enlarge. You decrease it, and it gets smaller. Rotation, you can guess what that means. It rotates your clip. Basically, a lot of it's just messing around with your preferences. Before I go any further, I want to go through the top tabs here. These can get a little confusing when I first started. I'll just go over a few of them. If you go over to assembly here, it just shows your clips and then it shows your workspace. So it's just these two windows, which can be really nice if you're just clicking and dragging. Then you can go to editing, which is basically the exact same as it is if you go over to effects, except that effects has the effects panel. And then you can go, and then you can click on color, and it'll just have the color that pops up. It's super self-explanatory. I just usually stick in effects because that's just where I stay. But if you are looking at your screen, like, my screen does not look like hers, you're just probably in the wrong window. So don't freak out, you're just in the wrong window. We're going to talk about coloring your clip really quick. So if you go over to the right here, Lumetri Color. It's, again, super self-explanatory, which is the really nice thing about all editing software. It's very exploratory. That's basically how I learned. I just YouTubed and I just messed around. So if you look over here, you have your Roy G. Biv curves, and you can just mess around with the colors. Make sure that your video is highlighted, the one that you want to color, because otherwise it's going to start coloring some random video clip. And also make sure that your playhead is on the clip you want to change the color to. That way you can see the color transformation basically, because if you look at here, when I edit it, I can see what I'm doing to it, versus if my playhead's off it, I can't see it, just because I've done it so many times. I selected one and then my playhead was over here, so I was like editing it and I was like, why is my screen changing? Turns out it's what I'm doing. So that's just basic color correction. Go over to your effects panel, go to Lumetri Color, and then you can do the Roy G. Biv curves and stuff. This brings me to my next thing, is your effect panels. There are thousands and thousands upon thousands of different effects you can use in your videos. I am literally going to talk about two of those folders. It's the audio transitions and the video transitions. So I'm going to just drag in another clip here right next to it. So our first folder we're going to talk about is video transitions. Hit that little arrow, and you have a plethora of transitions to choose from. More than in iMovie. So you have from 3D motions to dissolves to your immersive video. I'm just going to do with a boring cross dissolve. So what you're going to do is you click and drag, and then you just drag it right between your clips. Then when you drag over it, you can say nice cross dissolve into one another. But if you're like, hey Maggie, that cross dissolve is way too long, I got you, my dude. Go over here, kind of highlight it, and if you can see, I can zoom in. But if you can see, oh geez, it's like a red bracket with that like a kind of like transition box around it. That means that your transition, you're gonna edit like your transition. And then you can just click and then drag it in, or then drag it out if you want it longer. So you're like, I want it shorter. And I'll do the same thing for other side. The reason why I say look for the bracket with the transition arrow or transition box within it is because a way to trim your clips is to go to the edge and then drag it in, but there is an arrow on the inside, and this will just like shorten your clip or extend your clip. So those are transitions between that. Something really quick is audio transitions. There's only 3 options to choose from. It's constant gain, constant power, and exponential fade. I'd say it works the exact same thing as transitions. I only use these for music transitions. You click and then you drag them in between. The constant power will just nicely blend them, and the exponential fade just fades it in. And then the constant gain, the constant power, they just kind of are, I couldn't really tell a difference between them, but they're basically one and the same thing. Which this just brings me into my next one. I'm just like doing so many like bridges here. Let's say you want to add a song, because we all love our music. Open up your iTunes or your, however it is in the Windows world. Okay, so I open up my iTunes. I open it and oh look, it's Ed Sheeran. Who doesn't love Ed Sheeran? I love Ed Sheeran. A lot of it's, again, just click and then you drag it in. And then you can just see this like audio waveform thing that shows up in your media box. Click. Click and drag on your media. I'm going to unlink this audio because I don't want it there, as you learned in unlinking. You click, delete, and then you can just see that my music will play instead of the audio that I deleted. We're going to talk about titles because you always want to put titles in your videos. Go to File, go to New, and go to Legacy Title. Hit OK. And then you can just click, type your words, and then you just basically made a title. If you see like a clip in the back, how you can see mine, that's where your playhead is. Wherever you put your playhead and then you said, I want to add a title, it's going to show in the background where your playhead was, so you can base your text around that if you so desire. After you exit out of that, you go into your media browser, click and drag it to where you want, and then you can see that it is above your clip. Make sure it's above your clip so it will show. If you are putting, I'll show you, if you put your clips under here, under your video, they will not show, which is a big thing to remember. And remember that eyeball thing I was telling you about? If I click that eyeball, it reveals what's under it. But the thing is that when it's playing, you can't see what's under it. So always make sure you are stacking on what you want it to be seen. And that's also what will happen if you want to do adjustments layer, but I can do another video about adjustments layer another time. That is a whole animal within itself. You can do the I-O thing I taught you earlier. You also can do that within your timeline. Now let's say that your video is super choppy and you're like, I can't even watch my video or review it to see if it's good enough before I export it. If you look above here, it's yellow, which means that it's rendered decently. Okay? Sometimes it's red and then it's just a mess and you're like, oh crap, I can't see my video. And it's not good. It's all going downhill and you don't know what you're going to do with yourself. You want it to be green. So go hit the I for in and the O for out on where that section is that you want to be rendered. Go up here to sequence and then hit render into out. What that does is just going to smooth over your video clips and blend them in so that they can flow better and you can review your clip before you export it. Okay, so it's rendered, it turned green. I didn't go through with rendering because it can take some time. So let's say you finish your video and you're like, I can't wait to show the world my video. I'm a pro now at Adobe. Go up to File, Export, Media, and it shows your video. Hold on. For format, I always do H.264. That is an MP4. So when you export it, you always want to be MP4 because that will work on basically anything. If you're working on Mac and you put it on a Windows, it will work. Mac to a Blu-ray player, to a TV, to a Chromebook, it will always work. So I always do MP4. If you have a different preference, go for it. I always do .264 and so on, whatever. To name your thing, you click on that blue weird link, name it My Movie, and then hit save. So then it saves that into where you want it. And then you hit export and then your video and your movie is all done, ready to show the world. Alright, so that is my Adobe Premiere Pro tutorial. Let me know in the comments, 1, what you think, and if you have any more recommendations for a video, and 2, what you think my intro should be, and my outro, because I don't know what I'm going to say after I say this. That's why I keep babbling. Alright, really quick because my camera's about to die. I don't know if I got my intro because it just stopped recording for some reason. It's a stupid camera. It's not dead yet. It's not dead yet. But let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any more requests, subscribe and like this video, and I will see you all in my next video.